Dr. Rob Sivers was interviewed by Coach Branson, and listen to this video. It's video number 78 on my blog about protein and fat and insulin. Very, very interesting how if you are eating too lean protein, that is why you find that you don't have energy. And here's an interesting thing. You may even see increase of blood glucose levels. Listen to what he say.
Glucose into your bloodstream, you get a minor little bump of insulin, but you don't get that secondary big bump. So elevated blood sugar per se does not trigger major insulin release. That is a false assumption that we've made forever. If you think about insulin release, it looks like a penny farthing. You know the penny farthing bicycles with a little
the big wheel. Right. Yeah.
Glucose stimulates a little bit of a release, and then the bigger release comes from a hormone called GLP1. Okay, GLP1 has two areas of release. The first area of release in the stomach and the duodenum, which is an instant early release in response to sugar. The delayed response, the lower intestine response, is what you're talking about, where protein that is now being digested by this. Human beings have the longest small intestine in the whole of all mammals. The latter part of the intestine, when these amino acids are being absorbed, they need insulin to become protein. That insulin bump is coming from that. However, when you're eating your meat, you actually need fat with your protein, which is an interesting other because we tried this experiment. We did an experiment where we believed, this is prior to that understanding I've just articulated, we believed that an elevation in blood sugar triggers insulin release. And one of the things that will, as I just explained, trigger or cause a rise in sugar is lean muscle, lean protein. So if you eat a massive amount of lean protein, we know that 2 or 3 or 4 hours later, your blood sugar will go up.
Interesting.
But what was interesting when we measured insulin didn't budge. And the reason for that is because that GLP-1 wasn't being triggered adequately to create the big wheel insulin response.
Wow.
So
okay.
what our patients found is they were desperately hungry. They felt like crap. But as soon as they added fat into their protein, now they're happy again. So when you're eating protein, it should always be with fat. And one of the things
this is awesome.
Is, I mean, it's all just, so if you look at these athletes who are drinking protein shakes, which are pure amino acids, there's two problems with that. Number one, in order for the liver or the muscles to generate protein, you pretty much need all 21 amino acids. Some of those are very difficult to get in solution. So basically what you're drinking is a sugar drink, because the liver will turn that into sugar because all the amino acids are not representative. The second thing is the lack of fat causes major problems.
That's interesting. So is it, do we know what the mechanism, so this is totally amazing stuff. Right. I've never heard the need to combine fat and protein for that insulin response. And I think that's huge for a lot of people, because I do know there are people that are going high protein right now. The war between high fat and high protein is on right now. And
exactly.
I'm trying to get people to understand that you need adequate fat and you need adequate protein. The relationship to each other in ratio and percentages is ridiculous. Stop worrying about it. Give your body what it needs. But it's very interesting because I do know that there are people who are doing high protein and they're having those exact things. They're hungry, they're eating, and they seem like they have to eat more and more and more.
They're eating all the time. They're eating multiple meals. They're not getting into that ebb and flow. So we did that with over 1,000 patients. I'm in the process of trying to write that up. And the experiment failed absolutely. I don't know if you remember on the when we were on the cruise, I had one of my patients who actually flew over from Italy. And we talked about that. She was one of the people that did that protein experiment, because what we had is the group of my patients that are so fat adapted, they become insulin suppressed. So they're not even producing insulin. So what we have to do is get them to trigger some insulin. And we thought, okay, if lean muscle can do that by turning into sugar.
Okay, so go and check that video out. It's video number 78. One thing that is interesting that he say in that video is that it takes 4 to 6 months to correct insulin resistance. And this is something I've learned from that video. I've re-listened to that video. It takes 4 to 6 months to correct insulin resistance. You can't look at the carnivore diet as a short-term solution. It takes time to correct insulin resistance completely for some people. And then another thing I learned is insulin blocks ketone production. With other words, if you are going to cheat on your carnivore diet, either with eating sugary treats or drinking sugary cold drinks or even alcohol in excess, or eating starch, potato chips or things like that, you will produce insulin. And that insulin will block ketone production. And remember, the goal is to be in ketosis. You want to be in ketosis. Go and check out video number 78 on my blog. Click the photo profile. What Dr. Cybus further say in video 78 is saturated fat triggers satiety hormones. Lean protein does not cause satiety. So fat triggers the GLP1 hormone and it releases it, and that controls and corrects insulin resistance and satiety control. So eat your fat first, he say. If you have a piece of meat, eat the fat first. Further say the GLP1 hormone also plays a role in the lower intestine, and it allows insulin to be released to convert protein to glucose in the small intestine, in the lower intestine. You also further say that lean protein over time triggers hunger, not satiety. And lastly, he mentioned that insulin resistance causes the incidence of breast cancer to go up with 256%, according to Dr. Jamie Seaman. So this is important information. Go and check out video 78 on my blog.